Time's running out. I discovered my husband's affair with my sister. While in labor, his parents are helping me sue for every penny. Before the shock reveals could destroy my mental health. The hospital room was too bright. That's what I remember most clearly. The harsh fluorescent lights bearing down as another contraction tore through me. I was 19 hours into labor with our first child, my husband Michael pacing nervously beside the bed. My phone buzzed on the side table, and when Michael stepped out to get more ice chips, I reached for it. I wasn't snooping. I need to be clear about that. My sister Caroline had been texting updates to our family group chat all day, and I wanted to see who had responded. But Michael's phone had somehow gotten mixed up with mine. Identical cases, a mistake anyone could make. The message notification wasn't from our family chat. It was from Caroline directly to Michael. I can't keep lying to her. Being in that delivery room, watching her go through this while you hold her hand, knowing what we've done. I'm falling apart. We need to tell her after the baby comes. My hands went numb. The phone slipped, hitting the linoleum floor with a crack that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. The pain of my next contraction blended with a different kind of agony. One that would outlast the physical trauma of childbirth by months, maybe years. In that moment, as my body worked to bring new life into the world, I discovered that the two people I trusted most had created a secret life behind my back. I didn't confront them. Not then. I couldn't. My daughter was fighting to be born, and she deserved better than to enter the world amid screaming accusations and shattered trust. So I said nothing when Michael returned. Nothing when Caroline arrived an hour later with forced cheerfulness and a stuffed bear. Nothing when they exchanged a look that I now understood with devastating clarity. Instead, I focused on breathing, on pushing, on meeting my daughter. And when Lily finally arrived at 3:17 the next morning, her perfect cry cutting through the room, I made a silent promise to her. I would not let their betrayal destroy us. I would protect her and myself from the wreckage they had created. I just had no idea then that my most unexpected allies in that fight would be the last people I'd ever expect. My husband's parents. Or that I would soon be racing against time to secure our future before my fragile mental health crumbled completely under the weight of this betrayal. The first 72 hours. They say the initial days after childbirth are a blur of exhaustion, hormones, and adjustment. For most new mothers, it's about learning to breastfeed, surviving on minimal sleep, and marveling at tiny fingers and toes. For me, it was about maintaining a devastating secret while my body recovered from major trauma. About watching my husband and sister perform their roles, doting new father, excited new aunt, while knowing they had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. Every touch from Michael made my skin crawl. Every time Caroline cooed over Lily, I imagined her hands on my husband and had to fight the urge to snatch my baby away. But I said nothing. Not yet. I needed time to think, to plan. I was physically vulnerable, emotionally raw, and financially entwined with a man I no longer recognized. "You're so quiet," Michael said on our second night in the hospital as he adjusted my pillows. "Are you feeling okay?" I nodded, avoiding his eyes. "Just tired." "You're amazing," he whispered, kissing my forehead. "I'm so proud of you." I wanted to scream. How dare he stand there, playing the devoted husband, while carrying on with my sister? How long had it been happening? Weeks? Months? Years? The questions burned in my throat, but I swallowed them down. Not here. Not now. Caroline had left hours earlier, claiming work deadlines needed attention. In reality, I suspected she couldn't maintain the charade any longer. The text message made it clear she was struggling with guilt, though not enough to have prevented the affair in the first place. As Michael slept in the uncomfortable hospital recliner that night, I held Lily against my chest and silently wept. For the family I thought we had. For the future I'd imagined. For the sister I'd trusted since childhood, and the husband I'd promised forever to. All illusions, shattered with one accidental text message. But as the tears dried on my cheeks, something hardened inside me. A resolve took shape. I would not be their victim. I would not let their selfishness determine my daughter's future or my own. I needed to be strategic, to gather information and resources before confronting what I knew. Because once those words were spoken aloud, once the affair was acknowledged, nothing would ever be the same. And I needed to be prepared for the aftermath. The evidence. We brought Lily home on a Thursday afternoon. Our house, the 3-bedroom colonial we'd purchased with such hope 2 years earlier, felt like a stranger's space now. Family photos mocked me from every wall. Michael and me on our wedding day, Caroline standing beside me in her maid of honor dress, the 3 of us at Christmas last year, smiling into the camera with no hint of the deception underway. How hadn't I seen it? The signs must have been there. While Michael ran out to fill my prescription and pick up takeout, I began to look. It wasn't difficult. He'd grown careless, confident in my trust. His laptop password was still my birthday. His email opened without question. And there it was, months of exchanges between them, dating back to when I was just 4 weeks pregnant. I can't stop thinking about yesterday. "When can I see you again?" Caroline had written in April. "She has that doctor's appointment tomorrow at 2. Come over at 2:30. I'll make an excuse about working from home." Michael's reply, sent while I was worried about early spotting and potential complications with our baby. Message after message revealed their relationship evolving alongside my pregnancy. As my body changed and my focus turned inward to the child growing inside me, they had turned to each other, finding excitement in the forbidden, justifying their betrayal through complaints about my mood swings, my fatigue, my preoccupation with the baby. "She's barely present anymore," Michael had written in my 7th month. "Everything is about the baby. I feel invisible." "I know," Caroline had responded. "She's always been like that. Tunnel vision when she wants something. Remember how she barely called when I went through that breakup last year? All about her promotion at work. We deserve to be happy too. Their revisionist history of me, painting me as selfish, self-absorbed, carved new wounds atop the betrayal. Was that how they truly saw me? Had they convinced themselves I somehow deserved this? The most damning evidence came from their plans for the future. 2 weeks before Lily's birth, they had been researching apartments in Chicago, a 6-hour drive from our home in Indianapolis. Michael had applied for a transfer within his company. They were planning to leave together once Lily arrived and I was sufficiently recovered. "We just need to wait until she's settled with the baby," Michael had written. "My parents will help her, and we can work out a custody arrangement. It's better to do this right." His parents? The same in-laws who sent me weekly care packages throughout my pregnancy? Who had renovated their guest room into a nursery for Lily's visits? They knew about this? I felt physically ill, barely making it to the bathroom before vomiting. Betrayal upon betrayal. An entire conspiracy of people planning around me while I naively prepared our home for a baby I thought we both wanted. When I heard Michael's key in the lock 20 minutes later, I had cleared the browser history and retreated to the nursery with Lily. I needed more time, more information, more leverage before this house of cards came crashing down around us. The unexpected allies. Michael's parents arrived the following day. Martha and George Evans, married 47 years, pillars of their community back in Ohio. I'd always admired their relationship, the easy companionship and genuine affection they showed each other even after decades together. "Let me see my grandbaby," Martha cooed, arms outstretched as she bustled through the door. George followed with their luggage, his kind eyes crinkling as he kissed my cheek. "You look exhausted, sweetheart," he said gently. "We're here now. You get some rest." I handed Lily over, watching as Martha expertly cradled her against her chest. They had raised 3 children of their own. This wasn't their first rodeo. Yet something in George's expression made me pause. A sadness behind his smile, a heaviness in his demeanor as he watched Michael enter the room. "Son," he acknowledged, the word clipped. Michael embraced his mother but barely met his father's eyes. "Thanks for coming. We could use the help." "Of course," Martha said, but her smile seemed forced. "Why don't you go pick up that grocery order while we get settled? Rebecca looks dead on her feet." When Michael left, something shifted in the room. Martha handed Lily to George and turned to me with purpose. "How are you really doing, Rebecca?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I began, the practiced lie about being tired but happy dying on my lips. Instead, tears welled unexpectedly. "I'm not okay." Martha nodded, unsurprised. "We need to talk. Not here. When Michael gets back, tell him you're going to nap. Come to our room." Confusion and wariness battled within me. Were they part of the conspiracy after all? Coming to convince me to accept whatever arrangement Michael and Caroline had planned? But an hour later, sitting on the edge of the guest bed while Martha rocked Lily nearby, I discovered just how wrong I'd been. "We know about Caroline," George said without preamble, his voice heavy with disappointment. "We've known for months." "You... what?" The revelation left me breathless. "Michael called us in April," Martha explained. "Said he'd made a terrible mistake, fallen for your sister. Wanted our advice about how to minimize the damage when he told you." "And you didn't think to warn me?" Anger flared, hot and sudden. George shook his head. "We thought we'd talked him out of it. He promised it was over, that it was just temporary insanity brought on by anxiety about becoming a father." His hands clenched in his lap. "We believed him because we wanted to believe him." "But last week," Martha continued, "he called again. Said they were still together, planning to move to Chicago after the baby came. That's when we knew we had to intervene." "We raised him better than this," George said, his voice breaking. "His behavior is unforgivable, but more importantly, it's actionable." "Actionable?" I repeated. Martha reached into her purse and withdrew a business card. "Janet Levinson, Family Law. She's one of the best in Ohio, old college friend of mine. We've already spoken to her about your situation." My head spun. "You got me a divorce lawyer? Before I even knew I needed one?" "The clock is ticking, Rebecca," George said grimly. "Michael and Caroline have been planning for months. They have a financial strategy, housing arranged, probably a custody plan drawn up. You're days postpartum, physically recovering, emotionally vulnerable and blindsided. We're just trying to level the playing field." "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you help me against your own son?" Martha's eyes filled with tears as she gazed down at Lily. "Because this precious girl deserves better than a father who cheats on her mother with her aunt. because you've been nothing but wonderful to our family for 7 years. And because, her voice hardened, we didn't raise our son to behave this way. If he's chosen this path, he needs to face the consequences. All of them. They're moving quickly, George added. We found receipts for an apartment in Chicago on his credit card statement. Our family plan still sends us his bills. First month's rent and security deposit paid last week. Move-in date is 3 weeks from now. The timeline crashed over me. 3 weeks. While I was still healing from childbirth, while I was deep in the fog of newborn care, they planned to upend everything. What do I do? I asked, my voice small. You call Janet, Martha said firmly, pressing the card into my hand. Today. Now. And then you let us help you gather everything you need before Michael realizes you know. Time is critical here, George emphasized. Not just for legal reasons, but for you. The longer you carry this secret while pretending everything is normal, the more damage it does to your mental health. We've seen it before with friends who went through betrayals. The deceit becomes its own trauma. As if summoned by his words, I felt the edges of my composure beginning to fray. The room seemed suddenly too bright, my breathing too shallow. Martha must have noticed because she quickly took my hand. You're stronger than you realize, she said softly. And you're not alone. We're here, and we're not going anywhere until you and Lily are secure. Looking into their determined faces, these people who should have been protecting their son's interests, but had instead chosen what was right, I felt the first faint stirring of hope. Perhaps I could survive this after all. The legal chess game. Janet Levinson was everything Martha had promised. Sharp, strategic, and utterly unimpressed by stories of infidelity. Affairs happen, she said during our first call, which I took in the bathroom with the shower running to mask my voice. What matters legally is how we leverage the situation to secure your and your daughter's future. Indiana, she explained, was a no-fault divorce state. The affair itself wouldn't entitle me to more assets or support. But other factors worked in my favor. I was the primary caregiver to a newborn, temporarily unable to work due to maternity leave, and had evidence of Michael's intent to remove our child to another state. The text messages about the Chicago move are gold, Janet said. But we need more. Bank statements, credit card records, asset information. Can you access these without alerting him? Thanks to George's technical knowledge and Martha's distracting presence, we managed to gather extraordinary amounts of information over the next 3 days. What we discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Michael had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts to a private one for months. Small amounts that I hadn't noticed amid the bustle of pregnancy and work. He'd applied for a new credit card in his name only. He'd consulted with his own lawyer back in January based on a check I found in our financial records. Most disturbingly, he'd amended his life insurance policy to make Caroline the secondary beneficiary after Lily, removing me entirely. He's been planning this for almost your entire pregnancy, Janet concluded during our next call. The good news is, his preparations give us leverage. The bad news is, we need to move fast. The strategy she proposed was aggressive. File for emergency temporary orders granting me exclusive use of our home and primary custody of Lily, freeze all financial accounts to prevent further dissipation of marital assets, and request significant temporary support given my postpartum status and maternity leave. We'll file first thing Monday morning, she said. It was Friday afternoon. That gives us the weekend to complete the paperwork and for you to decide how you want to handle the personal confrontation. The confrontation. The moment I'd have to look Michael in the eye and tell him I knew everything. My stomach churned at the thought. I don't know if I can face them both, I admitted. You don't have to, Martha interjected. She had been sitting beside me throughout the call, taking meticulous notes. George and I can be present, or it can happen through the attorneys after you're somewhere safe. Somewhere safe. The implication that I might be unsafe with my husband of 7 years should have seemed absurd. Yet the Michael I thought I knew had disappeared the moment I saw those text messages. Who was this stranger capable of months of calculated deception? What else might he be capable of when cornered? I think, I said slowly, I need to confront him before the papers are filed. I need to see his face when he realizes I know. But not Caroline, not yet, and not alone. The plan took shape. Sunday night, after Lily was asleep with Martha and George present, I would confront Michael. By then, all our documentation would be secured, copies stored safely with Janet and in Martha's possession. Monday morning, the legal proceedings would begin regardless of how the confrontation unfolded. As we finalized the details, a notification popped up on my phone. A text from Caroline. Can we talk tomorrow? Just us sisters? It's important. My heart raced. Did she know I'd discovered them? Was she planning to confess? Or was this part of their strategy? To have her break the news gently, play on our sisterly bond to manipulate me into accepting their plans? Ignore it, Janet advised when I read it aloud. Any conversation with either of them before we're legally protected could be dangerous. They could record you, provoke you, use your emotional state against you in custody arguments. She's right, George agreed. There will be time for confrontations after the legal safety net is in place. I nodded, silencing my phone. Caroline would have to wait. For once, my needs would come first. That night, as I nursed Lily into the quiet darkness of her nursery, I felt a strange calm descend. The initial shock and pain had hardened into something else: determination, clarity of purpose. Every moment Michael continued his charade, believing me ignorant and vulnerable, I grew stronger. Each gentle word from Martha, each practical solution from George, each strategic move outlined by Janet built my resolve. Time was running out for Michael and Caroline's carefully constructed plans. They just didn't know it yet. The confrontation. Sunday evening arrived with thunderstorms, nature's dramatic backdrop for what was about to unfold in our living room. Lily was fed and sleeping soundly in Martha's arms upstairs. George sat in the armchair by the fireplace, his presence solid and reassuring. And I waited on the couch, heart pounding, as Michael returned from the grocery store. Sorry it took so long, he called from the hallway. The lines were crazy, and then I ran into... He stopped abruptly upon entering the living room, taking in the tableau, his father's grave expression, my rigid posture, the conspicuous absence of casual Sunday evening normalcy. What's going on? He asked, wariness creeping into his voice. Sit down, Michael, I said, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. We need to talk. He remained standing. Is something wrong with Lily? Lily is perfect, I replied. This isn't about her. It's about you and Caroline. The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. For a suspended moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the rain lashing against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. How long have you known? He finally asked, not bothering to deny it. Since I was in labor, I said. You mixed up our phones. I saw her text. He sank into the chair opposite me. God, Becca, Don't, I interrupted. Don't apologize. Don't make excuses. Just answer my questions. I took a deep breath. How long has it been going on? Since March, he admitted, staring at the floor. 10 months, almost my entire pregnancy. And the apartment in Chicago? You've already paid the deposit? His head snapped up, eyes widening at my knowledge of those details. He glanced at his father. Dad told you? I found out on my own, I said coldly. Along with the separate bank account, the consultations with a lawyer, and removing me from your life insurance. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, he said, running a hand through his hair. We were going to tell you properly, once you'd recovered from the birth. Give you time to adjust before discussing arrangements. How considerate, I remarked, sarcasm dripping from every syllable. Planning my future for me while I was busy growing your child. You don't understand, he insisted. Caroline and I, it's real, Becca. We didn't mean for it to happen, but now that it has, stop. My voice cut through his justifications like a knife. I don't care about your feelings for my sister. I don't care about your excuses or your plans or your version of events. What I care about is what happens next. George leaned forward. Michael, your mother and I have made our position clear. What you and Caroline have done is reprehensible. The way you've gone about it, the deception, the financial maneuvering, makes it worse. Michael's face hardened. Of course you'd take her side. You've always preferred Becca to any woman I dated. Even now, you're sitting here with her instead of trying to understand your own son. We understand perfectly, George replied, his voice steady. We raised you with values, with integrity. This isn't about preferring Rebecca. It's about recognizing wrong when we see it. What do you want? Michael asked me, ignoring his father. Money? The house? What will make this simple? The callousness of the question stole my breath. As if my shattered trust, my broken family, my postpartum vulnerability could be negated with a property settlement. I want, I said deliberately, what I deserve. Half of everything we've built together. Full custody of Lily, with supervised visitation for you until she's older. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences. He laughed, actually laughed. You're delusional if you think any court will give you full custody just because I fell in love with someone else. I'm her father. I have rights. Rights you are planning to exercise from Chicago, I countered, without my knowledge or consent. We would have worked something out, he said dismissively. Been reasonable about it. The patronizing tone, the assumption that I would quietly accept whatever crumbs they offered, ignited something fierce within me. Tomorrow morning, I said evenly, my attorney is filing for emergency temporary orders freezing all our assets and establishing temporary custody of Lily. By noon, you will be served with divorce papers outlining my full demands. By evening, Caroline will be named as co-respondent in public court documents that anyone, her employers, her friends, our entire family, can access. His face contorted with shock, then anger. You wouldn't. I already have. I stood up, suddenly eager to end this conversation. Pack what you need for a few weeks. The court order will grant me exclusive use of the house pending further hearings. You can't just throw me out of my own home, he protested. Watch me, I replied. And Michael, if you contact Caroline tonight to coordinate your stories or move any more money, it will only strengthen my case for financial malfeasance. As I turned to leave the room, he called after me, desperation edging into his voice. Becca, please, you're not thinking clearly. The stress, the hormones from childbirth, you're not yourself right now. I paused at the doorway, turning back to face the man I had once believed would love me forever. That's where you're wrong. For the first time in months, I'm exactly myself. And that's the person you should have been most afraid of crossing. The aftermath and race against time. The next 24 hours unfolded exactly as Janet had planned. Michael spent the night in our guest room and left early the next morning without confrontation. By 10 a.m., all our joint accounts were frozen by court order. By noon, Michael had been served with divorce papers at his office, a deliberate choice to maximize his professional embarrassment. What we hadn't anticipated was Caroline's reaction. She arrived unannounced at the house that afternoon, eyes wild, makeup smeared from crying. "You have to let me explain," she begged from the doorway as Martha blocked her entry. "It's not what you think, Becca." "I think it's exactly what I think," I called from inside, unwilling to face her directly. 400 text messages and a lease in Chicago make things pretty clear. "He manipulated me," she cried. "He was unhappy, said you two were practically separated emotionally during your pregnancy. I made a terrible mistake, but I've ended it. That's what I wanted to tell you yesterday." The convenient timing of her supposed attack of conscience wasn't lost on me. More likely, Michael had warned her about the legal proceedings, and they were now implementing damage control. "Save it for your deposition," I replied, nodding to Martha to close the door. Caroline's desperate appeals continued via text and voicemail throughout the day, evolving from tearful apologies to angry accusations that I was being unreasonable, vindictive, unstable. Each message only strengthened my resolve and provided additional evidence for Janet's case file. But as the initial legal victories accumulated, I found myself struggling in ways I hadn't anticipated. Nights were the worst, awake with Lily, alone with my thoughts, replaying years of memories through the new lens of betrayal. Had there been signs all along? Moments between Michael and Caroline that should have alerted me? How much of my marriage had been real, and how much a convenient cover for their relationship? The questions circled endlessly, robbing me of sleep beyond what Lily's newborn schedule already took. When I did sleep, nightmares jolted me awake. Visions of them laughing at my ignorance, planning their future, while I dutifully prepared a nursery and attended prenatal appointments alone. "This is normal," Martha assured me, finding me sobbing in the kitchen at 3 a.m., a week after the confrontation. "The trauma is settling in now that the immediate crisis has passed." "I feel like I'm losing my mind," I admitted, rocking Lily against my chest. "One minute I'm fine, making plans, feeling strong. The next I'm paralyzed, questioning everything, my judgment, my worth, my ability to ever trust anyone again." "That's why we need to move quickly with the legal proceedings," she said gently. "Every day you spend in limbo extends the psychological damage. Janet understands that. It's why she's pushing for an expedited hearing." She was right. Janet had prioritized speed in our strategy, arguing successfully that my postpartum status created unique vulnerabilities that the court needed to address promptly. A hearing was scheduled for just 10 days after the initial filing, practically light speed in family court terms.